Okay, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you for coming to this amazing place, and actually, we have an audience this time, so this is kind of nice. For those who don't know me, my name is Richard Wade. I'm the Deputy Executive Administrator at the Water Board over the TNRIS group. Also serve as a State Geographic Information Officer for Texas, and welcome to the community meeting. So again, if you're new here, and welcome to all those who have joined us online. I think we got a good group. If you can't hear us online, or if you're having any issues, would you mind putting something in your chat so that we can try to remedy the situation? We're working with new tech here, and I think we got it under control, but you never know. So first of all, if you haven't been here before, if you're new here, this is the kind of meeting by which we want to share information with you, but we really would value getting information back from you so we kind of know how we need to progress in basically supporting the community in the way of geographic data and geographic needs. A lot of the things that we've done in the past has actually come from these kinds of meetings where we've learned about what people need and what people want. And that really helps us to define how we continue to develop and acquire data and do the things that you need so you can do your work. So remember, this is, I hope this is a two-way street. We've got a lot going on at TNRIS, and we really want to share that out with you. But we know you have a lot going on and you have some needs. And if you let us know what those are, we might be able to help you. So that's kind of what we're here for. On top of that, there's a lot of new people who are in this industry, I think, that really value your expertise and are learning to, they don't know what they don't know. And this is kind of the opportunity where they can actually meet you and work with, hey, I saw your presentation, I heard what you said, and that's exactly what we're doing. Can we talk? Those kinds of community commitments and camaraderie is really what we're looking to do here. So it's all about, to me, it's all about getting together and understanding what everybody's trying to do. So welcome. I did want to give a special shout out to the TxDOT folks, Chris Bardash, and also to you. Yes, sorry. You guys have been amazing to help us put this thing together at this particular location. We've had it here before when we did it the very first time. We go to ACC too. This is an amazing place. And so those of you who are online, please try to come in person, because it's different than it was, 2020 when we all kind of fell apart here. But coming back to this area that we're in, this workspace is actually quite amazing. And I think you're missing something if you're not here in person. So we're glad you're online, but I believe we get a lot out of it if you're here. So we really want to thank TxDOT for providing this facility to us. And I need to advance slides, don't I? So let me try to do that. Here we go. So this is actually what the facility looks like from the outside. Last time we heard, Travis actually gave us a little tour around here, and it was quite an amazing view. So I think if you come, we can kind of show you around in this place too a little bit, and even their parking garage is better than many of our offices. So it is quite amazing. So this is kind of our agenda for the day. I'm going to give you just a couple of opening remarks here, but I really want to talk about a few things, some of it that you're not quite familiar with. Our National States Geographic Information Council, you'll start to hear me kind of reference that. We call that NSGIC. So when you hear me talk about that, I want to give you a little update about what we're doing there. Give you a little update of what our GIS Solutions Group goals are for the coming year, actually probably for the coming couple of years. So for those of you who don't know, we actually have a solution group committee by which we work with to help us try to define our path for the state. And so I want to give you a little update on that. We're going to give you, Gayla's going to give you a little update on the 88th Legislature GIS updates that she's been tracking. We're going to give you a little forum update as well, talk about our StratMap projects, and then of course the the TNRIS Data Hub online payment system will give you a little overview of what that is starting to look like. So I think that's going to be, the future of a lot of things that we're going to be doing at TNRIS, and how that will work, and then how that actually benefits you. And then we're going to go on to our roll call, which to me is the funnest part for me, because we get to learn about now what you guys are doing. And then we got our special guest presentation. Keith Owens from Fugro is going to be here to talk about something very, very exciting. I'll go into that a little bit as we get closer to his, and talk about how we're hoping to work with Keith on some ideas that we have for the future that I think y'all are going to find really, really fascinating. And then we'll just wrap up, and then we are going to go to a little social just down the road here. So we'll give you those details. So, all right, let me just jump kind of right into it. So the National States Geographic Information Council is a council by which it's kind of like what the GIO does, or what we do for the state level, where we kind of pull everything together at the state level so people can get to the information. Well, this council is the GIOs from all over the country who get together and try to roll things up at the federal level. So everything you do at the local level goes up to the state packages it up, and then we try to roll it up at the federal level. That's just kind of one of the things that they do. On top of that, we really work close with our business partners to make a lot of this stuff happen. So similar to how we have our StratMap contract and some of the vendors that are on that contract, it's a mechanism by which we can work together and we can make things happen. Well, they do that also at the national level as well. I am actually fortunate enough I'll be serving as the president of this organization starting in September. So I'm very excited about that. Texas has done some amazing things, and I think they want to learn more about what we do and how we've been able to implement these projects and these ideas, and hopefully I'll be able to provide that to them and move NSGIC a little bit forward. But two items I really want to discuss, which was the National Geospatial Data Act, which is something that happened in 2018. It was kind of the first of it. But basically, it's to kind of set standards and policies at the national level, so that reduces duplication and all the things that we have at the state level. So that is still kind of being hashed out. It was done in 2018. It's kind of being revisited now. There's a couple of things that need to happen with that. The hope is it's kind of stagnated, and come September, we really hope to try to move that forward. So you'll hear me talk a little bit more about this act as it gets its legs under it a little bit more. So we're very excited about that. At least it's got some momentum at the federal level, and we hope to continue to push that forward. The National Spatial Data Infrastructure, NSDI, is the other thing. It's kind of similar to having a platform by which information can reside, or at least be able to be accessed. So similar to any infrastructure, maybe if at DIR, and we talk about cloud infrastructure and those kinds of things, this is a very similar thing, but gives you a place to put it all at the national level. So you've heard us before, we've talked about, we've submitted data, address data to the National Address Database. That's one of the, I guess, the first data sets by which this national data infrastructure houses. And so it's at the federal level. If there's a multi-state incident like a hurricane that comes through and impacts multiple states, you can go directly to that data set, and all that information is there and seamlessly available to people. And so we want to do that more with pretty much all data sets that are there. And the real issue that we have at NSGIC is the fact that the states don't necessarily talk to the feds, at least not globally. The feds have to come one-on-one to the different states and kind of work details and with them, and that's not an efficient way to do it. When you come to this council, we're all represented at one time. And so we can talk to the feds as a group, and they can understand what our issues are, and they understand how we need to work together. And on top of that, they have funds that can help us get there. So it's kind of a win-win thing. So that's really the beauty of this council. On top of that, different states actually have a need to work together. There may be an imagery program that they want to start in a state, and they look at Texas and say, you guys have a Texas imagery program. How did you start it? What was the mechanism that made it work? We want to do something similar. And so it allows us to have these free-flowing conversations because they recognize that we have this ability, and probably wouldn't have found out about it unless they were part of this organization. So more to come on that, but we're very excited about the prospects, and that Texas can lead at the national level. Let's see here. Texas GIS Solution Group goals. As I mentioned, the solution group is exactly what it sounds like. It's a group that helps us find solutions for the state. We've done amazing things, let's say with imagery. Over the last 20 years, imagery started off with color infrared, 1 meter data. It wasn't color matched or anything like that, but it was amazing for its time. It took 9 years before we got another data set available, and then that was the natural color, and it just kind of kept progressing. And now we've got what we consider to probably be the premium data set, which is 6-inch statewide. And now we're able to do this about every 2 years. So that's amazing. We got LiDAR data that we have, but we can do more. And one of them is that our imagery service program can actually serve other data other than just imagery. It can serve LiDAR, it can do multiple other things. So we're finding ways where data can be put into a service that is available. You don't have to download it, and you don't have to figure out how to access it or use it. We also want to work on using tools that we have at our fingertips that people don't know about. In some cases, because we have our imagery service, we use Google Cloud Platform, and with that comes various tools. Google Earth Engine is one of them. We have AI tools and machine learning tools that y'all don't know about. And so what we want to do is kind of market those out and let people understand what they can do and how they may be able to serve you. And we want to take advantage of them ourselves. So being able to share that out with the solutions group and having them support what we do, we can start building projects around it and demonstrating them and how they can work and maybe be accessible to the state as well. The new elevation data service that I was talking about, similar to our imagery service, we're working with the Texas Disaster Information System, or TDIS, Center for Space Research, that we are looking at putting all our LiDAR data at TAC, or the Texas Advanced Computing Center, and serving that out as you would imagery, right? So you can serve the point data out, use it in your models, and this way you don't have to download it, figure out what tiles you need, download it, process it, and use it. It's just like imagery. You look at an area, say, let me see the data fills in, and you can use it in basically real time. So that's something that we are considering, and the solutions group's considering about how we're going to move this forward. Continue to enhance efforts at the solution group level to promote stronger collaboration. We continue working towards ways we can talk and we can communicate and get you the information, again, that you need. The bottom line here is, if we don't talk, we can't do anything. We can't get any, we don't understand what's going on here. So we are working, we even have a marketing person we're trying to bring on at TNRIS that's going to help us kind of market what we do and try to understand how we can better provide you the solutions that you're looking for. So, networking, sharing best practices, to state agencies. These are just things we need to continue to collaborate on and continue to work towards. So really, really excited about these future goals, and we will, there's more to talk about, and you'll see some of those today. And before I move forward, I wanted to chat with you a little bit. I was in Phoenix the other day, and they have a program there of a car called the Waymo. And it blew me away because these things were all over the city, and it's a self-driving car that was probably the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And it uses every bit of technology that we talk about. It uses our road data. It uses our uses LiDAR data to understand where it is. It's got cameras. It's got artificial intelligence and machine learning that pulls it all together in a near real-time configuration that literally drives the roads of Phoenix. And I've always said, if I ever had a Tesla, I would never use the auto driving feature because it would just be too weird and too scary. But yet I was the first one to want to jump into one of these things. And it was quite fascinating. So I've got a little video to play. I hope it works. I haven't even tested it, but I'm going to see if I can get it to play. Is that working? Oh, it's bad. But so it looks great on my screen. But I'm in the front seat and having this car go through the lights, driving itself. It understands four-way stops. It understands two-way stops. It understands people about to walk in front of it. It was doing that all on its own. It's got a radio. You can see I'm playing with the radio down there. It's actually playing off my iPhone. Really, really fascinating technology, and it drives all over the town. I went 10 minutes in it. It cost me $3. So this is quite amazing technology. This is the stuff that we do. This is the stuff that they use to make things better. And it's just really, really amazing to see how the stuff that we do, how it actually gets used and put into practice at certain points. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because I thought it was really, really cool. And I think that's all I've got.
Someone online wants to know if you tipped the car.
You do not tip the car, which is the greatest thing in the world. It doesn't ask you for a tip. It tells you exactly what you need, you know, how much it is before you get on. I think it was $3 and change to go a few miles and go to lunch. And then I called it back to go back home, and it was really amazing. And I think the really cool thing is it drives up and that the LiDAR sensor spinning at the top, but it's got LEDs on it. So it actually says your name as it comes up. So it knows it's your vehicle. So two Waymos can come up together and you just look at which one it is. And as you walk up to it, your application lights up and says, this is your Waymo, it welcomes you. And then it says unlock door, and it's a button, you push it, and then the doors come out, the locks come out, and then you can open and get in, and it welcomes you as you get in. It waits for you to strap in and asks if you're ready, and you say you're ready, and then it just goes. And it's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So yeah, very, very fascinating. So
how long did it take you to get home?
Hey, you know what? I was comfortable immediately. It was like I was watching a movie. I mean, just like, hey, this is cool. What does it do with this four-way? You know, there's a two-way stop too, where cars are going back and forth and people are trying to cross. It negotiated that. It kind of crept up a little bit and kind of did its thing, and then it waited, and then it just went on through. And I was like, how does it see through the building? I mean, you know. So I should probably have been horrified and scared, but I was actually quite amazed. And these things were running on the highway. So I don't know. I just thought it was a feature and it was cool, and I need it. All electric, and these are Jaguars. They're the ones who, yeah. So it was a very comfortable ride, and it was very fascinating. So anyway, your technology in action here. So. Great. I guess there's no other questions online?
Not at the moment.
Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Gayla, who's going to give us a little update on what's going on at TNRIS. And watch your step right here.
Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Gayla. I'm with the Texas Natural Resources Information System, and I'm here to tell you about some exciting job openings that we have coming up. You know, for the longest time at TNRIS, we were a group of 14 or so, and now we are at 18 today, and we are happy to report that we continue to expand. And so a lot of the positions that I'm going to talk about here are brand new for us, and so we're really grateful to the support from you all, from our community, to help continue to grow our office and to our own agency, the Texas Water Development Board. So what they are we'll have a new geographic data officer, and that's a fancy term for a person that is in charge of acquiring statewide land parcels and address points in the strategic mapping program. Lauren Kirk over here on the side has vacated that position and has been promoted to our new imagery lead. So Lauren is the new imagery lead for statewide imagery. So we'll be posting that one soon. We will have an application developer. This is in our geographic infrastructure and technology side, led by my counterpart, who's not here today. His name is Joe Sepulveda. So that's an exciting one to help us continue to build more and more applications at TNRIS. We have an opening for a marketing specialist. So if you know anyone in that arena, that person will be on Laura Sepulveda's team, which is our design, innovation, and marketing group that can help, run these meetings even more beautifully. GIS analyst, this is the one that is also in our infrastructure area of TNRIS. So someone that can help with enterprise GIS that we are now doing for the entire Texas Water Development Board now for the first time, which is really cool. We have promoted someone named Space in our at the TNRIS team into a brand new UX UI position. And Space was our web administrator, and so now we need a web administrator. So we'll be posting that to run all things TNRIS.org. And the last one is this one we've had out for a little while. This is an intro position. It's our geographic information specialist that works in the under the strategic mapping program as well with Joey Thomas, who could be here today. So please visit the site if you are interested in joining our team. We would love to work with you. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone have any questions about the positions before I move on? And then we're even planning more in fiscal year 24. We're going to be doing some requests. So.
Chris wanted you to add that TxDOT mapping branch is hiring a GIS analyst level 1 through 4.
Okay, let me say that again on the mic so they can hear on here. Or can you come up so they can hear on the audio online?
I'm just reading it again. Okay. Yes. Hi, everybody. Chris Bardash wanted you to know that TxDOT is hiring in their GIS mapping branch a GIS analyst 1 through 4 as well. So keep that in mind.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions? Feel free to see any TNRIS staff member if you have any questions. Okay, I'm going to launch right into legislative updates. So this is the 88th Texas Legislature that is convening right now. I'm going to give a quick little overview of how Texas Legislature works. So it meets every other year. Our state only convenes every other year in the January to May timeframe. So we're almost to the end right now. This year, there were a record number of bills filed. It was insane. There were probably, I think it's around 8,000 individual bills have been proposed by your Texas legislatures in the House and the Senate. A lot of those are identical, so they're companion bills, but it was record-breaking this time. There's a lot going on in Texas. Fortunately, a lot going on for GIS in Texas, which is really cool too. So bill filing started in November. The legislature convened in January, and bill filing ended in mid-March. So now it's just like all the bills moving through the House and the Senate for questioning and for voting and everything. And then if they make it through to become a law, then they become a law. And most of them are effective September 1, which is our fiscal year. Some of them are January 1. It depends on the bill, but a lot of the bills don't ever make it. So there's a lot of stuff that's filed that I'm going to be talking about here that might not actually make it to a law. But hopefully, I think this is a great list for us in our community, and hopefully they do. So the biggest one for us personally at TNRIS is our name change bill. So yes, it does take an act of Texas Congress to change the name of TNRIS. So we have proposed in the water code. So this is because we are a division of the Texas Water Development Board. The Water Board took this legislative request to the Capitol with the rest of their requests, and have proposed the renaming of Texas Natural Resources Information System to the Texas Geographic Information Office to make that, that echo, a little bit echo. to make better sense of what we do, how people can just automatically recognize what we do and how they can come to us for that geographic information. And of course, it matches the other GIOs across the nation. The other part of it is that it specifically names the Deputy Executive Administrator of the Texas Geographic Information Office as the Geographic Information Officer of Texas, and that is Richard's current role in our area. Oh, yeah.
The question online is, are bills just sitting on Capitol Hill right now?
Some of them, yes. Some of them are moving, some of them aren't. They're all in various stages, but a lot of them are being, worked on continuously or, through the night. Yeah. All the way through the end of May. And then if there is a special, sometimes the governor can call a special session and it can continue on through the summer. But generally the ones that have been proposed during the official session, if they make it to May and become a law, then that's what they do. And if they don't, then they don't. And they might come up in another 2 years. Yeah, hey, Bruce.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing well.
Good to see you.
I don't even know what SB and HB mean anymore.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I'm not started yet. But are we tired yet? Are they just sitting, or is there any activity? And how does it really affect your position now? Because essentially you are the GIO. Right.
So the question is, are these two name bills just sitting, and what's the status of them and how it affects Richard?
So this particular one, obviously, I think probably makes a lot of sense and has been coming for a while. Really, TNRIS doesn't do what it did when it was formed in 1972. There's a lot that's changed. So in this case, this is just basically what I feel would be a correction or a modification, modernization of what we do. But from our standpoint, they've back a couple of sessions ago, they've added new criteria to basically my position, which is basically setting up the GIO function, right? And so what I am required to do is find new technology and bring it out to the masses to see how it can maybe help us streamline and be more efficient. So that's probably one of the big things. The other thing is supporting emergency management, emergency support. I would say what this is really going to do is it just helps us be a little more efficient in the job that we do, okay?
I thought that we had legislated that TNRIS was the house for, was the emergency.
It's the clearinghouse for geospatial data, and it supported emergency response basically. That is actually not only, I mean, that wording is still there, but it's actually been enhanced, to do that. So, but not just to that, it's supposed to support efficiency for the state. Gives the state more tools, I would say. It allows us to work for you more efficiently than I think we've been allowed or been, able to do. So, I hope I'm answering your question, but that's the reason why we are doing what we're doing, essentially.
Nothing else changes in the TNRIS statute. Just literally the name, and then it did say the director of TNRIS is the GIO. And so now we're correcting that,
right.
And because Deputy Executive Administrator didn't exist.
Right.
Until recently.
And TNRIS has probably grown almost two times in the last 15 years. In other words, we probably started off with maybe 11, 12 people initially, and we're going to be well over 25 people by end of 2024, we think. And so it's just allowing us to get more resources and more tools to help the state. So I think that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Cool.
Thank you.
There's a question online, and we've confirmed that everybody online can hear everyone in the room, so that's good. We don't have to repeat questions. There's a question about, will our office be represented at TDM in Fort Worth this year? And Miguel Pavón is actually co-submitting a presentation for that conference in Fort Worth this year. So yes, we will be there. Is there anything else that you wanted to add on that? Okay, and yes. Hi, Thomas.
Hey, so if this bill passes, are there any plans to have like a Viking funeral for the names that you have to TNRIS coming in?
Yeah. Well, we actually have a staff happy hour, and all of y'all are invited to come as well at the beginning of June, when we know this is when this is official, and that will be our time to bury the hatchet. Yes, celebrate. Yes.
I think it's going to be like the office space where we just took it out.
Yeah. Yeah. We got a couple signs that say TNRIS. So, and Laura's group is heading up a rebrand effort. So you will be seeing new logos from us in the future. You'll be see some new things at the forum surrounding this. You'll see some communication about it as well. So we are very excited. Yeah.
Well, as a senior person, I'd like to thank you two for writing it out as long as you have.
Thank you.
Because I remember how it was back when we had to testify and had to spell GIS to the legislators. I'm not talking about geographic information system, but actually spell GIS to the legislators. So
you're right.
Thank you guys for hanging it there.
You're right. Yeah. So on that note, there are other bills that I'm gonna just kind of quickly run through because of time, but I have these here. There's actually 4 slides of text and I hate those kinds of slides, but these will be available to you as a reference if you want to look them up. And so there were many more bills that have been filed that are related to some of the work we do. And I have them hyperlinked here if you want to go and check them out at any time. And we'll share these slides out at the end with everyone as well. But they will not spell out GIS in any of the bills. They'll say things like mapping, computer mapping is my favorite one, or maps, whatever, digital, whatever. So I'm just going to go through some of the themes that Joey Thomas in our office and I found as we were reading the captions every day up until the beginning of March, and just show you what we found. So there's one about artificial intelligence and creating an advisory council around that for the state. So obviously AI is very hot right now and will continue, and probably indefinitely. So that's an interesting one. There are a couple about studies for the effects of drought and wildfires. That's obviously a major hazard in our state. There were several filed about the Texas Redistricting Commission and just redistricting related. And these are the ones that actually said computer mapping in them. So those were interesting. Those are probably the most contentious ones of any of them that I'm talking about here. Again, these aren't laws yet, right? So these are just proposed. There's one about the sale of consumer geo-tracking data. So like the data that's on a personal cell phone and how that data is used. There's a theme about emergency response in schools. And sadly, we know why those have come up in our state. And so hopefully this group, our group, can help to get school districts mapped, especially on the perimeter and indoor. So there are a couple about that. There are a couple about the electricity supply chain security and sharing of that data that's traditionally not been shared for security reasons, but it's opening up the TxDOT to be able to gain access to that information. This is very TxDOT heavy, mobile source emissions reductions and transportation electrification. Electrification Council. And actually, Michael Chamberlain from TxDOT has submitted a paper for the Texas GIS Forum where he's going to talk about electric charging stations across the state. So a lot of these bills, we already have some papers that have been submitted that go along with this. And one from the Railroad Commission about the electricity supply chain map. So excited about that. Unfortunately, another sad theme is overdose and overdose mapping. So this was, I'd never, this kind of came out of the blue. I hadn't heard about this kind of mapping, but it gives the authority to local law enforcement to do some overdose mapping in their areas of where those occur. Broadband development, we do have a new broadband development office at the comptrollers, but this is kind of expanding that and some funding for that. Miguel Pavon of TNRIS has been involved in some of the GIS at that office. So he's a resource if you have questions about that. There's a theme about mapping aggregate production. So this is, geology related and for the Bureau of Economic Geology. There's one about unmanned aircraft and about acquisition and use of those. So drones by us, if you're with a government agency, basically you can't use a drone if it's been sold by a company from China, Russia, Iran. I think there is another one listed there, but there's policy around like prohibitive technology policy right now at the state. Travis Scruggs and Scott have come into this, so I've run into this for drone procurement. So if you grab them if you want to know more about that. And then just funding of the Next Gen 911. So a lot of really cool things. I get excited every time I read this list and thinking about how we as a group can help with these efforts. Even if these bills don't come to fruition, we should at least be working on in these areas, I think. So if you want to track or look up the bills, just go to capital.texas.gov and you can see what stages they're in at any time, even our name change bill. So the name change bill it was voted on in the House. It hasn't made it to vote in the Senate yet, but we expect it to. So that's all I have. Does anyone have any other questions about bills? Okay, I'm gonna hand it over to Laura Sepulveda from our design team to talk about the forum.
Hey y'all. So I just wanted to remind you the Texas GIS Forum is coming up this October. Last year we had it in the spring, so it's been a while since we've all gotten together and had this wonderful conference, but we're really excited, and we are announcing that the theme this year is Keep Texas Elevated, which can be interpreted a lot of different ways. And so we hope that you interpret it your own way, but feel free to send us your thoughts on it as well. And then a few key dates to keep in mind. Presentation submissions are currently open, and like Gayla said, we've already received a handful and they all seem really exciting, but we're looking for more. That is open, and you can go to TNRIS.org and our event page for the 2023 forum. The site is up, and submit. It's a quick form there. It's really easy to do. It includes a title, a description, and what you hope people will learn from your presentation. And that is available until May 16th. So if you have a cool project you've worked on or are working on, we allow co-presenters as well. If you've created a cool process or know of something that you think the community would benefit from hearing about, we hope you submit a presentation. This is also, I will plug, we are looking for new presenters as well. So if you've never presented at the GIS Forum before, it is a friendly community. We are open to brand new presenters or people who want to practice their public speaking skills. And we're open to, we're looking for, more diversity in our speakers. So I encourage you. Yeah, question. It will be at the JJ Pickle Research Campus again this year. Yes. Any other questions so far? Okay. Yep.
Will there be a Geo Rodeo?
I'll let Richard answer that one.
So, let me up. The Geo Rodeo is something that we really want to bring back. The way the Geo Rodeo worked is that was a free event, because what we try to do is we try to take the proceeds from the forum. We don't ever make money. If we make money, we use it to do the Geo Rodeo. And because of COVID, the pot of money shrunk a lot. So the hope is that the forum will continue to, we'll build that pot back up. But the plan is we will do another Geo Rodeo the minute we have the funds to do so. So stay tuned. We are looking at options of how to do that, whether we do it on our own or if we team up with other groups to try to do something similar. But it is definitely something we want to bring back. So any other questions on that?
Gonna be a party, right?
Yeah.
Yes, there will be a social. So we are in talks and reaching out to potential keynote speakers. We don't have them solidified yet. If there's anybody you have in mind, reach out to Richard, Gayla, or myself, or the GIO at Texas. The email address is gio@twdb.texas.gov, which is the main TNRIS email. So you can send ideas there. Sponsorship opportunities will be opening mid to late May. So if you know of a vendor or somebody who would like to get involved, keep an eye out for that on the event website. And then conference workshops and registrations will be opening mid to late summer this year. So we're excited about that. We post all of our updates on the event website on TNRIS.org, and we also post updates on our Twitter account, which is @TNRIS. Yep, question?
Any further thoughts to enabling state agency sponsorship, or is a bureaucratic machine too complicated for that? And is the way to get money from state agencies to support the forum the best way of registration?
So the answer to that is we've considered that. In fact, we've tried to implement it on a couple of years where we actually allow agencies to sponsor. Realistically, we know this is this Texas GIS forum. This isn't a TNRIS GIS forum. So we would be open to that, and we are open to that. The issue is that we just haven't had a whole lot of takers, essentially, except for thank you, Scott, for always your support.
Well,
Yeah.
I haven't yet convinced
Yeah.
them to do it on my side.
But I tell you what, I would be interested in is learning from the agencies at what would be the mechanism by which they would feel like that would be something they could do. What would they want to get out of it to help them want to provide some funding to the forum, because I really think it is probably one of the most successful communication platforms we have. And bottom line is I'd be looking for that. I would love to have other state support. I think that would be fantastic. So if anybody has any other ideas, we're open to it. So thank you. Yeah.
Question about whether the TNRIS.org changing the name because of the name change. And I wrote back, yes, the domain is not confirmed yet, but TNRIS.org will redirect for a while.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, and I'm going to pass it over to Lauren Kirk to give you some StratMap updates.
One more question, Laura.
Oh, sorry.
This is a good one. When can people register to attend the forum in October?
Yes, so registration should be opening mid to late summer. And the best way to stay updated on when it opens is to follow us on Twitter or check back on our website. Okay. Cool, thanks.
Hi, I'm Lauren. Nice to see you guys. I'm going to give you guys a couple updates on some of the projects and programs we have going on in StratMap. So let me go forward. So if you've attended these meetings at all in the past, I'm sure you've heard of the Texas Imagery Service, but if this is your first meeting, the Texas Imagery Service is a premium service subscription program at TNRIS in partnership with ActGeo and Sanborn and Hexagon. We provide statewide 6-inch natural color, orthoimagery. I like remember all of the little terms. So this status map up here in blue is available on our website, but what that just shows is kind of the vintage availability of the imagery through the program. So everything in blue was from our last statewide collect, which occurred over 2020 and 2021. In 2022, mid-2022, we flew updates for 14 major metropolitan areas. And currently, back in November, we started our fresh full statewide refresh that is ongoing and expected to wrap up in the next month or so. We're really, really excited to see that data come through. This is our most recent status map. Thank you, Bridget, for sending that to me. So as you guys can see, the majority of the state is collected, and we just have a couple of little remnant spots which are going to be collected any day now. Just if you have any questions about that, let me know. Just wanted to show you guys the status. So something I didn't mention earlier is that the Texas Imagery Service is available for all government entities in Texas. That's not just state agencies. That can be state universities, regional governments, local governments. You guys are all, capable of enrolling in the program. If you have specific projects that you're working with contractors for, those contractors can get access as well to the imagery service for the duration of the project that you're working with them on. And each participant is classified at a certain user level. There's a cost associated. Please reach out to me directly if you have any questions about where you fall and what the costs would be. I'm happy to give you that information. And if you're not a participant and you're interested, we do offer 2-week free trial links for the Texas Imagery Service. You can get to it on the Imagery Service project page on our TNRIS website. I did forget to mention earlier that these are served as OGC compliant WMS and WMTS service links. You can put them in your maps, in your applications, however you want to use them, use them. A couple other projects updates we have going on is our land parcel and address point project. That is in the thick of processing right now. It's going well. We're really excited. Keep getting data in. That is expected to be posted on our Data Hub website in July. And I also encourage you guys, if you haven't already, to check out some of our past years, which are also on the Data Hub site currently. We will be making web services links out of those two data sets as well. So that's also very exciting. You don't have to download counties and counties worth of data if you don't want to. And then we also have the NOAA CCAP land cover project. This is a pilot project in Texas. It's of the Houston-Galveston region, a 13-county area. It's 1 meter resolution, about 25 vegetation classes. It will be freely available on the TNRIS Data Hub sometime this summer. We're really excited about that too. We haven't had a new land cover data set in a long time. And I believe at our next community meeting, we're gonna have Nate Harold, who is the NOAA project manager on this specific project, here to talk about it because it will be wrapping up or completed at that point. So if that's something you're interested in, I highly encourage you guys to come to our next community meeting. And then, so TNRIS also has a really cool historic imagery archive. We call it the Research and Distribution Center, the RDC. And a few months ago, we completed a full digitization effort. So all 500,000 plus photos have been completely scanned, which is very exciting. They're all now digitally preserved. Our end goal, of course, is to have them freely available for download on the TNRIS Data Hub. So now that that is all scanned, we're starting our phase 2, which is georeferencing some of those collections. That project is expected to kick off later this spring or early summer. And those georeferencing projects will focus specifically on collections that are unique only to TNRIS and that are of major urban areas, since those are by far the most requested aerial images that we get. If you have any questions at all about the RDC, the archive, the georeferencing project at all, I encourage you to reach out to my colleague, Erin Pierce, whose email is up here. Any questions? That's pretty much my updates before I hand it off.
There's a question online.
Okay.
It is, and by the way, we have 124 people online right now. Okay. Does the 6-inch imagery have a near infrared band?
No, it does not.
Okay. Far West Texas, Brewster County, Presidio County, et cetera, is going to be updated. Aerial imagery also, correct?
Yes, the whole state. Yep.
Does it have far infrared?
No.
He said, just kidding.
Nice. Cool. Well, thank you guys. I will hand it off to Gayla really quick. Catch me around if you have any questions. Thanks.
Lauren. Hey, so Ellen, come on. So you might be wondering where Joey Thomas is today. He didn't leave TNRIS. He just left for the week. He's up at SCOG right now. So have any of y'all been to the South Central ARC User Group Conference? So that's happening right now up in Frisco, Texas. So he's there with Aaron exhibiting. So he is the new strategic mapping program manager. And so that left an opening for a new elevation specialist. And so our new elevation specialist is Ellen St. Romain, who has just recently joined the TNRIS team. And so this is her first time giving the elevation updates.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everybody and everybody online. I'm really excited to be here and give you an update. Let's see. Okay, so current LiDAR projects we have going on are hopefully going to be done in the fall and winter of this year. Those include some higher resolution coverage of state parks that fall within the areas of interest or near them. Our upcoming projects for 2023 to 2024 are sort of finalized, and last year Joey submitted he submitted an application for an award and received it from the USGS, and he received some grant money for that. So that'll be coming in soon. That's exciting. And the USGS is also, outside of what we're collecting, the USGS is also collecting some LiDAR in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. In addition to the LiDAR acquisition we're doing, we're also doing some LiDAR classifications on some older LiDAR data. So we're adding in some additional classifications to the data, and that should be ready fairly soon, late summer, early fall. Last but not least, there are some bathymetry initiatives we're kicking off. I believe they're kicking off pretty soon. And I also was told that we think that both of these high priority project areas are going to be able to be included in this initial collection of the bathymetry projects. So I think that's all I have. I'm not sure. Do we have any questions from anybody?
Do you know the resolution of the Rio Grande LiDAR?
I believe it's going to be 0.5 meter DEMs available. I think it says QL1, yeah. So the same as the state parks we're collecting. It'll be pretty high resolution. Yeah.
For the land classification,
Mm-hmm.
how many classes will you have, and when can you be more specific about when that will be available and for what years it's on?
Yeah, so it's the 2019 LiDAR data listed up there, and those are the 5 classes we're adding. I don't have a more specific date for you on when those are going to be available.
Yeah, release date late summer, fall of this year.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those data didn't have those classes in them. They're from the federal partners already. So we're going back and making them better.
Cool. All right. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Chris, I think.
Yeah. One more question, Ellen. Is the LiDAR available for sale? You can answer from over there.
Oh, okay. You can hear me. Okay. Yeah. All the LiDAR that we have available is free for download on our website. So it is available. You can pay me if you want.
All right. Hey y'all, I'm Chris. So I'm here to present to you what our dev team has been working on, which is our online data payment portal. If you've ever ordered any data on TNRIS, data.tinris.org before, especially if it's been a custom order. You might remember that we process our payments over the phone or by email. And so this is basically our effort to modernize that whole process and just make it much simpler. So, it works pretty much the same way as it always has. You start off on the catalog, you choose your date of collection, you add your order to your cart, and then once you've added all your data to your cart, you go to the cart, you enter your personal info, and you submit your order. This is the part kind of where it changes though. At this point, you're going to get an email with an order confirmation link, and it will have a one-time password. And at that point, you can check the status of your order and see whether our team has processed it or not, and if they basically billed you for your info. But once our team does that, you'll also get an email, once again, with a one-time access code. And you can take that access code and go to the link in the email we send you, and you can prove that you're not a robot, and then it will redirect you to the payment portal. And at this point, it's pretty much just like any other e-commerce solution. You enter your personal info, you enter your credit card, and you submit your order. And at that point, you'll get a receipt once again in your email, and you're pretty much done. So this isn't actually publicly available yet. We're currently still doing some testing, but we'll be doing a public release probably by the end of May is what we hope to, that's the deadline we hope to meet. So yeah, with that, if there's any questions. All right, I think it's back to Richard. Thanks.
Chris. Okay, so you can see that there's been a lot of changes being made here, and if we have our way, we won't have to talk to you guys at all from anything. You just do everything online, and we never no. That's clearly not what we want to do, but we are trying to make things easier and more efficient. So hopefully this will be the way to do it. And we continue to improve our data products, like we said, as we continue to take, let's say, our scanned imagery and reference it. Now it becomes a data set you can use in your GIS and so forth. So that's where we want to spend our time doing that, and then making that, of course, available to you. So how are we doing on time? Are we right on time? Okay, good. Okay, so this is my favorite part. This is the roll call. This is where we do want to hear from you and find out what's going on in your world. So with that, I'm probably just going to call on a couple of folks, but what I want to do is call on folks in the audience first, and hope y'all can hear them okay. I don't think we need to use a microphone. And then from that, we're going to open it up to the folks that are remotely, and raise your hand, and just when you raise your hand, we will unmute you, and then you can talk. And I'm hoping we can hear you. I've got the speaker up here, and we'll give it a shot. So that being said, Scott, I'm going to turn it over. You knew I was going to call on you, right? So Scott Friedman with GLO.
Just tell me how much that is.
I will, absolutely. I take Venmo.
I will try to be brief and just go through these rapid fire. I'm Scott Friedman, with the geospatial team at Great to see everybody. So as part of our continuing future state planning, our team and data cleanup efforts, we've been identifying outdated and no longer maintained data sets for deletion. We're also identifying authoritative data sets that can be moved from our enterprise geodatabase to RGS Online. That way it can be better accessed by you all and the public. And we're also looking to maximize AGO's content management, expanding more into Hub and its sharing capabilities. Some of you may have noticed over the last couple of weeks, GLO has a brand new map store. So the general land office, has a really fantastic archive of tens of thousands of historical maps and millions of historical documents. If you've never done the So if you've never done the GLO archives tour, I highly recommend it. It's fascinating, and you can handle documents that were actually created and signed by Davy Crockett and Stephen F. Austin and all those guys. But so through the GLO map store, you can find and view and purchase scanned copies of historical maps for relatively cheap price. And so a brand new map store was just released over the last couple of weeks. And as part of that, under the showcase tab, if you go, so the new URL is historictexasmaps.com. And under the showcase, my team has a brand new project called Texas Hidden History. It's actually a revamp of an older project, but it's a series of story maps that our staff and interns, we have a couple of interns here today, have been building that showcase really interesting and dynamic different topics on Texas history. So for the public, for educators and school children of Texas. We also just launched our new Coastal Resource Management Viewer, or CRM Viewer, for coastal planning and leasing purposes, and it has an associated resource management codes, or RMC data hub. So all of the layers in the CRM Viewer can be accessed and downloaded through the RMC data hub. RMCs, I'm sorry, I'm throwing around a lot of acronyms that you may not know, but our resource management codes are codes assigned to state waters, so the bays, the Gulf of Mexico tracts out to 10 miles into the Gulf, and coastal lakes and rivers for companies to lease, usually for energy exploration purposes. Well, the RMCs are codes assigned to those tracts to help them plan, and so they know what may exist in those tracts. So the resource agencies are the Historic Commission, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, so the state and federal agencies that generate those codes. And so it can be anything from cultural resources to pipelines to oyster reefs in those tracts. So it's for them to look out when they're leasing those tracts. Those resources, the CRM Viewer and the RMC Data Hub, can be accessed through our GIS page. It's glo.texas.gov/GIS. And we've also been working with our Energy Resources Department and third-party geologists to create and map in order to identify sites on state submerged lands for carbon sequestration, so to store CO2 gas captured from industrial sources or energy-related sources. So storing that CO2 improves the environment, so it's storing them in underground geologic formations. We've been generating contours from select years of UT Bureau of Economic Geology LIDAR data. And that's to assist GLO's coastal planners, beach and dune program and field operations, and coastal erosion program project managers, better visualizing shoreline and morphological changes following hurricanes, for example, Harvey and like that. So we've been working on 2012, 2017, 2019, publishing them as vector tile layers in ArcGIS Online. And then we do plan to add those to our previously mentioned CRM Viewer soon. We're continuing to refine a coastal waterbird rookeries polygon layer. So that was recently created in 2020 and 21 from historical bird census data, aerial photography, and LiDAR data. We obtained census data, field census data for the last 5 or 6 years, as well as assistance from volunteers who are intimately familiar with particular rookery areas. That's been really helpful. So we're updating that layer. And as Gaila or someone mentioned, looking into alternatives for our small fleet of DJI Chinese-made drones. Our agency made a decision not to apply for an exemption, as other agencies with larger fleets may have done. We have a political head of our agency, and so they just didn't want to deal with any backlash from that. It's understandable. And we really only have about a dozen drones anyway, so we're on the beginning stages of building that fleet. So it made more sense to just eat that cost and ground them. We did apply for, if you're interested, a temporary exemption for 3 of the drones that are West-built prevention and response program flies. They have the infrared capabilities, and so to help with emergency response in the interim while we're researching and buying new drones. So we're looking at Parrot, Anafi Gov, Anafi USA, and Anafi AI, Frontier Precision Unmanned. And they're coming to demo these at the UT Center for Space Research this Friday, I think. What time? Okay. You can, check it out, but you can also, me and I'll ask my drone. Shoot a 10. So.
Go ahead.
Okay, so what I heard Scott say is there's going to be a drone sale at GLO.
Yeah.
Fire sale, so. Yeah, if you're not doing it for the state, I think you can't use them. Okay, Scott, thank you very, very much. You guys have an amazing program, and we enjoy being at least supporting any way we can to help you out. So thank you so much. Mike, can I put you on the spot for maybe a quick update on what's going on at TN?
Well, yeah, I'm totally prepared, but I'm just happy to be here. Yeah, I think this is the first time I've been here physically in about 3 years or so. So I'm Mike Wiggett. I'm Unit Chief for Operations Technology at the Texas Division of Emergency Management. And my GIS staff, I believe, are listening in. They were taking training today, but I think they're going to try and carve out some time to listen in. Listening to the presentation earlier, I was thinking, probably we should try to put in a proposal for a panel session just to update what's going on at TNM for the conference. Because there's a lot of things I could talk about, but I think the biggest thing for us, when we had Winter Storm Uri, that was the biggest incident in state history in that it touched basically every county in Texas with that winter storm. And so with every big incident, there's opportunities, and from that, we realized that we had to switch how we were doing things. And so we worked with Esri. We purchased Esri Hub. We upgraded to Hub Premium. And from that, we've created a user account for every county and city in Texas. And what we're doing with that is we're using that to put out the information we're collecting from the citizens of Texas for damage assessments. So we really switched things up. Uri happened in the middle of COVID, so there was a lot of challenges going on. And COVID created a situation where FEMA and the local emergency managers really had challenges going out door to door to do damage assessments. So we had to come up with a different way to do that. So we created a Survey 123 form that now goes out to, we publicize it to the public. They go to that web link, they fill out their damage assessments, it goes into a map, and that helps us get to some determination of being able to show we have this many reported damages to the federal government, helps us get to whether we can meet thresholds for declaration. And so there's still in-person damage assessments, but not nearly like it used to be. So it's been kind of flipped on its head. The other big news for us going on right now is we purchased an enterprise edition of GeoCortex. And that's a middleware technology that allows us to do some other interesting things in ArcGIS Online. And part of that was that we didn't have the capability of really kind of parsing out that damage assessment data to the individual communities, which some communities have Obviously, they have their own GIS personnel. They want to be able to get that data. Some of them don't. And so that also gives us this capability of creating a map or a dashboard for a community that doesn't have the wherewithal. So that's kind of really the big thing on the plate. We're trying to get first phase of that in place for June 1st for the Emergency Management Conference in Fort Worth that you mentioned earlier. And that's the big thing. And also we have the Pin to Flood project that we're working on too for implementing.
Mike, thank you. Yeah, there's a question.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just a little quickie. Good thing from last week. What type of outreach and training you guys have set up for the locals? Because we know what the turnover is.
Yeah, so that's a good question, Bruce. One of the other things, if I do a panel session, we can talk about that. So one of the things that's really changed differently at TDM is that we've gone to a regional approach. So we really have staff, we have a lot more regional staff. We have not only, before it used to be primarily just response staff. Now we have recovery staff in the field, and we also have mitigation staff in the field. And so and we've also added a county liaison officer program. So every county in Texas theoretically at some point in the future will have a TDM representative. Right now, I think we have around 50 or 60. I'm probably off on that number, but there are, the goal is over the years ahead, there'll be a liaison for every county. And so those folks will be responsible, those field people will be responsible for educating the locals on those technologies.
So Mike, yeah, I mean, I think that's fantastic. The thing that always strikes me, I think, is how much I think you guys are going through changes right now, or been going through changes over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think it would be really good to have some sort of a panel, maybe to kind of get everybody back up to speed on what's going on.
Yeah, quite honestly, I mean, we've been so busy that this is the first time I've really gotten out of the office in some time.
Yeah, well, we're glad you're here. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So
Who's your next week?
let's see, I'm looking at time. I want to be anybody else?
Just real quick. I thought I was retired, and I was retired until redistricting came along and realized I didn't train anybody to do redistricting. Been doing it for 3 decades now, and it's coming up another year. I still haven't trained anybody, but the Ledge Council has all the county boundaries for the JPs, for the commissioners, for all the administrative boundaries. They have the county. Nobody has the city. I've got the city. You guys want the city?
Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
You got it. It's all yours. That's all. I'm done.
Okay. No.
Yeah, some background on that is the Texas Demographer Center has been asking us about aggregating Texas cities that are putting municipalities back together for the state. And so we would definitely like to talk with you and the Association of Counties about best way to do that.
We did 175
Nice.
cities and counties. No, it wasn't us. You guys remember how late the census data was released, and we got no relief. Of course, we couldn't get any political relief, so everything had to be done by January 1st.
Right.
I mean, it had to be done by January 1st because you had everybody that had to be notified about, oh, I don't want to go to all those bills, by the way, on redistricting. I think I caused all those because the data doesn't match. You guys are doing all this work about putting address points on, and it does not match the roll call and of course you have political bodies that are attacking the hell out of that. So that's what we'd like to see over the next 8 years that we're working on. So I'll be talking to you.
Thank you, Bruce. I think we need to go online for a few comments. Okay, I know there's some hands up there. So Jared, we'll go ahead and go with you first, and we'll unmute and let you talk. We're going to give this a shot and see how well you come through.
Okay, Jared, you are unmuted.
Okay, can everyone hear me now?
Hang on one second. I think you're coming through my speaker on my computer.
Okay.
Go ahead, try now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry I couldn't make it in person today, but look forward to the next meeting. So for the Railroad Commission of Texas, a couple of things that we're working on. We're part of the Texas Electricity Supply Chain Security and Mapping Committee. Yeah, it's a lot of words. And so working with Public Utility Commission and TDM on the map updates. So last week we submitted the 8 layers that we update and significantly improved the feature and attribute data and the accuracy. So we're pretty proud of that effort and we'll continue to do so. Internally, we're working on what's called a map application, which charts all our critical infrastructure. So it's going to streamline the critical infrastructure map that we update. Basically having the operators that we regulate will file and post that information. So it's really a straight pull of the feature data. So we'll have the latitude, longitude, and then all the attribute data, which can be parsed. And then we're putting that in a single repository, and then we're hosting it in Salesforce. So we're kind of moving from the desktop to the cloud, and we're trying to do everything kind of in one fell swoop using our regulatory authority. So we'll probably have that in place in version 1 in June. And it will really help out our operators in saving so much time and effort in the paperwork, and then the staff here. So we're pretty excited about that. Another initiative that we instituted this year is called GeoTab, and I think some agencies may have a version of that. And so it manages our fleet. We have about 350 or so vehicles. And what we've seen this do is not only help us in terms of fuel costs and really kind of route planning, but it's helped us in terms of safety and long-term maintenance costs. And we're saving thousands of dollars in maintenance costs just by understanding how our drivers and our inspectors are using their vehicles and then being able to do that. I mean, we've got everything from if someone stole the credit card out of the vehicle, we could track that immediately and shut it down. So very wonderful use of GIS just for the planning and kind of daily operations of our inspectors. So we're excited about that. And then for the TDM conference, so we will be presenting out of the critical infrastructure division on kind of year 1 and kind of just talking about what we learned from Senate Bill 3 and kind of the fallout from URI and then where we're at today and some of the lessons learned. And a lot of those lessons learned are actually geospatial. So we learned that really a lot of our data-driven decisions are the geospatial data that we collect, and then being able to really use risk management to drive how we set up our inspection universe, our inspection schedule, versus it just being kind of like a postal route. You know, you kind of keep going to the same locations and look at it. It's like, no, we really need to look at the climate information that we have. Some information from that GeoTab application I was talking about, so we can really narrow it down and get to what's important for the priorities for the map, and also be able to narrow it down in the event of some sort of energy emergency or any other emergencies the map's used for. So we're pretty excited about that effort as well, and we'll talk about that at that conference. And then finally, a couple of us are attending the ESRI Energy Resources GIS conference next week. So if any of you are going to be down in Houston, I look forward to talking to you. So that pretty much covers RC for now. So thanks, Richard, for the opportunity to talk with everyone.
Jared, thank you. It's been a long time since we've had Railroad Commission participate, and we know that in the last couple of y'all have been here. So we're very, very excited about what y'all are doing. So thank you again for being here and doing more. I think we got some.
Jared, is it okay if we share your contact email address to a participant online?
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone had any questions about anything we're doing geospatial wise, RRC, or anything in the critical infrastructure division, I'd be happy to discuss it.
Okay.
Thanks again, Jared.
Thank you.
Anybody else online?
No one else online, so we can probably.
What if I put Brent Porter on the spot?
Greg's here.
Oh, I could, yeah. So yeah, hang on a second. We'll let.
He said go. Brent says go for it.
He's hunting.
Thanks.
Hi, this is Greg Smithfire with the UT Center for Space Research. Just have a couple of updates for you, nothing too long here. So we've been working pretty regularly with TAC, which is Texas Advanced Computing Center over at J.J. Pickle, doing a lot of projects with them. And so one of those is working on a sort of seamless LiDAR project, a 1.2 meter project. And currently there's an effort to build sort of a sample area for some alpha testers to be working with on that. So that's an ongoing thing. One of the many things we're working on. We're also continuing to work with the Texas Water Development Board's floodplain group, and we have a system where we accept their models, they can upload their data models for flood modeling, and that's up until, let's see, the system so far has taken in hundreds of these archives and up to about 3 terabytes. So it's pretty significant thing. And let's see, the last thing we're doing is working more with using CCAN for doing some customization with metadata services, metadata schema, kind of basically metadata for uploading for data discovery, that kind of thing. And CCAN is something that a lot of, I know Water Development Board is using it, and there's I guess the Water Hub over in New Mexico, so we're hoping to be able to customize and be able to use that in the future. And that's about it. Not too much else.
No, that's great. And I know that we've been working closely. You guys, Brenton and others are the ones that are going to help us do the streaming of the LiDAR and other things. And so it's not only just the mapping side of it, but literally the streaming point. So we're very excited to be working with y'all on that. And normally we don't have this many people talking. I have to really drag it out of everybody. But for time's sake, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Stephanie and get TxDOT's update. And then I think we're going to have to move on for the sake of time. So Stephanie, will be transferred over to you here shortly.
Control, is that correct?
All right, so first thing is, my name is Stephanie with TxDOT's TP&P division. I wanted to let you all know that we are in the beginning phases of procurement for a project that we're calling Rival, which is LiDAR collection of all of our center lines here for the state of Texas. We don't have an estimate for when the project will kick off because we're still in that, in the contract writing phase, but we'll continue to update on during these types of meetings to keep you all updated on where we're at. The next thing is we are creating, our dev team has created an electronic LRS conversion tool. So this will go live later this year. It's what's on the screen now. It allows you to put in any kind of coordinate system that you have. I don't know why it's not sharing here.
We're trying to get it up there. People virtually can't see it, but we're working on getting it in the room.
As you can see, there's a lat long position here, and when you select the return results, it'll give you your DFOs, your and your quick reference marker, route names, and all of that information that's coming from our Texas TxDOT roadways layer. And I'll put the link, or I'll share the links out so you guys have access to this whenever it becomes available. We're just testing it internally right now. And to piggyback off of the LiDAR projects that were being discussed earlier at UT, we have been working with UT's team on the flood stream flow 2 project. And one of the findings that we had from that is we need some more information regarding our bridge polygons for our TxDOT data sets. So we have linear features and points depicting where our bridges are, but there's not a polygon that's available that shows the extent of the bridges. And where this comes into a problematic or a challenging phase is whenever you're trying to calculate the point of flooding. Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, there's, it's just not here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about
It, yeah, it will be on the recording.
Sorry. So, what I'm showing is the polygons over the flood data, and we're not able to create accurate warnings based on the elevation because we are not sure of the full extent of the polygon or the different bridges across the state. So we're working with the UT team to use the LiDAR technology to extract polygons and determine the extents of the bridges. We've run through a sample data set and we're working on a QC methodology right now. We've hired a few interns for TPMP that are going to work the quality team and create and to ensure that that data is correct. Then we'll publish it as part of the bridges layer for our TxDOT authoritative layers. The next thing is we have two digital delivery projects working in tandem right now. One is with the design division here at TxDOT and the other is with TPMP, focusing on the integration of digital data and the infrastructure behind digital data. So all of this LiDAR data, the UAS systems, digital twins that you hear about a lot when it comes to corridor modeling. We want to ensure that as an agency that we're prepared for what that looks like. Software training, consultants and contractor provisions, contract updates for deliverables, and just the overall change management that's involved with that, as well as the infrastructure upgrades that need to exist in order for us to house this information and share it out appropriately. So over the next 3 to 5 years, you'll be seeing more information about how that is streamlined here at TxDOT and the efforts that we're making to adopt that. And then lastly, an update on our UAS efforts here at TxDOT. What you're seeing is a scene model of one of our concrete traffic barrier sites. This was actually flown by our internal pilots here at TxDOT. We are in the process of evaluating 3 or 4 different models of drones. We can't say which ones. And we are also demoing which software we would like to utilize for sharing this data out. Currently, what you're seeing is a web scene that was created first in context capture and then imported into ArcPro and then shared out to ArcGIS Online. And so far our users are really liking that they can share this data to any of their team members. And we even did a demo yesterday on using the Esri Quick app to create a VR space and use just a meta quest to go around to that particular site and utilize their slide feature to call out particular areas. And I'm going to kick it over to Travis, who is one of our drone pilots.
Hey, everyone. So I'm trying to figure out if we can get a Teams meeting so you guys can see something on one of the screens up there. But that may come in at the last second. So about the UAS program. So that was a nice overview of some of the details on the data processing and management. So talking to a little more broad focus. So like, what are our 3 main areas of focus for the program and how are we going about doing those or accomplishing those goals? So goal 1, pilot training. You guys have all heard me talk about this before. We are now up to around 60 pilots that are now Part 07 certified. I was part of the second group that was going through our internal training program. And yeah, 60 plus pilots, that's pretty great. And we're going to try and train quite a few more. We want to have a large number of pilots spread across the state so that we can respond to data collection needs anytime, anywhere. So, and I'll show my screen in just a second. I don't think I can show quite yet. Okay, so part one, pilot training. Part two is equipping the agency with the hardware and software we need to successfully integrate those drones into a daily operation for the agency. So, as Stephanie mentioned, we're in the process of evaluating some drone platforms right now, but we're going to do procurement probably in the fall. That's going to be primarily light-duty drones, and that's going to be at least one for every district. There's 25 districts, and then several more for division use, and there's 32 divisions. I can't even remember. There's quite a few. We're also going to have a handful of specialty drones. These are going to be larger platforms that are going to carry different sensor payloads like LiDAR, multispectral, or very high-res imaging systems. So special needs projects. So that's two, right? So pilot training, equipping the agency with the hardware and software. And then three is going to be managing that program and fleet at scale. So like I already mentioned, we have 60 pilots now. We've only flown around 30 missions. But that number is going to be increasing dramatically once we get the procurement finished. So we need a way to manage all of those pilots and all the missions they're going to be flying. So that's where the software evaluation comes in, as Stephanie mentioned. And we are also in the midst of developing a community of practice. So I'm part of the work group that is helping kind of set the goals and needs for the agency, for the UAS program. And once all the procurement is finished, then we're going to transition to a community of practice. That means we're going to be setting those policies and standards and everything else, and then refining them as we get through the testing phases to make sure that our group of pilots and data analysts across the agency know what to expect and how to do their job in the most efficient way possible. So yeah, we're really excited. This is going to be a massive change, I think, in how the agency does data collection. It represents a lot of opportunities to take people out of high risk and dangerous situations for data collection. I mean, a story that the district engineer for El Paso told in a meeting just earlier this week. So in the video that you guys couldn't see, or the demo that you couldn't see, Stephanie was showing off a large storage facility for concrete barriers you see on the sides of highways. They had a guy scrambling, climbing over piles of these things to count particular types. Right? We don't want to have that. Right? Just send a drone out, take a couple of shots, and we can do automated counts out. And that's just a small example. Now imagine like large scale construction sites where you have cars blasting past on the side of the highway. We can take a lot of people out of danger if we use these systems intelligently. And we can also save a lot of money. So that's really exciting stuff that's coming in. The next thing I'm going to mention is a change. We have so many items. Sorry, guys, we're going to be here for a little bit. A change to our data year and processing. So those of you who have consumed our data in the past know that there's just a ton of highway data and highway and attribute data. Well, we have to report that data to the federal government on June 15th every year. And to make sure we hit that deadline, there's a lot of kind of planning that goes back months or even years in some cases to make sure we are getting everything in line to hit that deadline. We are now trying to shift our data editing and processing to make sure that our data year fits a calendar year. We have everything ready so we can just submit it when it comes to June 15th. So now when we can, in the future, hopefully next data year, we're going to be shifting closer and closer to that data year equals calendar year, which, like I said, those of you who've consumed our data, you know that it always seems like we're publishing data that feels like it's a year and a half or a year behind. we're now trying to get it so it's much more common. So more accurate, faster data. The next item we're going to talk about is GEM, which is the geometry editing module, which is how one of the ways we're going to accomplish that goal of shifting our data here forward. So now I'm going to share my screen, and we're seeing it. That's good. Okay. So in the past, we have managed all of our linear street data, roadway data, using editing products. And we are now we're very close to the end of transition to a web-based, in-house, browser-based method to edit all this geometry. And it's too bad you guys can't see that. Okay, so this is going to vastly improve our productivity. A lot of the capabilities we have in our Pro or our Map, whatever, built into this in-house tool. And so we can quickly start jobs, make edits to geometry. I'm going to show off something that I think I made this mistake. Yeah, check this out. So I'm zooming in on 290, and there's a ramp that is just misaligned. It's not snapped correctly. And it's as simple as starting a new task, making the job, and I can zoom in and start editing on it. And select a route, drag a vertex, snap it on there, click off, verify, and I can immediately push that update into our backend production system. So before we would have to make a geometry edit, do a bunch of processing, wait a day or two to finally push it through all the steps into to make it final. That process is now down to an hour. I can do the edit in seconds, and we do staged processing in about an hour. And then our base maps update after. So it's a dramatic increase in our timeliness, our accuracy, and it's also going to help us integrate with other systems in TxDOT that consume our data. So the entire process is going to be vastly improved. Okay, so hopefully those of you who are consumers of our data are going to be seeing a nice increase in our ability to get you accurate and timely data. No more edits left on the table at the end of the year, which is happening all the time. It has happened all the previous years. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. If I can figure out how. Yes. Okay. And I believe we are going to transition back to, let's see, the whole list. Listen, I think you're up next. Gayla should be enabling an option for you to share your screen via the meeting settings. Melissa is going to talk to us about electric vehicle infrastructure. Over. Sorry, we're using our bullet folder. All
Okay, she's self-muted, so I can't unmute her.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. I am going to try to share my screen, but I'm not quite sure where that button is. I'm not seeing it.
Here. Okay. Now I made you a presenter.
at the top, it should probably say show screen.
There we go.
But just so you know, folks in the room can't see your screen, but people online can. And we're running on time, so.
Okay. Well, all right, I guess we'll make it work. All right, can the folks online see the Texas Electric Vehicle Planning page?
Your email right now.
Yeah, I think you're sharing your email screen.
Okay. There we go.
There we go.
All right, my name is Melissa Rothrock. I'm also with TPP. My apologies for not being Michael Chamberlain. He asked me to cover for today. But we are really excited to have the opportunity to share this really exciting program. So the Texas Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, it began with the passing of the Federal Infrastructure Act back in 2021. And TxDOT with other agencies, we drafted this EV plan that was federally approved last year. And you can click this blue box and that you can read the full plan. So Texas is planning to receive $408 million of federal funding over 5 years. Each year it will be around $85 million that we will receive. And a key point to note is that these dollars will not expire. And this is going to be an 80-20 program, meaning 80% of the funding comes from federal government and 20% from the state. However, we are going to have the ability to let third parties pay the state share, and we actually plan to take full advantage of that. So the private sector is expected to cover the remaining 20% of about $120 million over the life of the program. So once this charging infrastructure is completely built out, it's going to be supporting over 1 million electric vehicles. And Richard, don't be scared of that full self-driving for Tesla. Don't be scared of it. Embrace it. So this obviously is going to take a lot of time to reach to be able to support 1 million electric vehicles, but the build out is going to be occurring over multiple phases over 5 years. So phase 1 is what I was just going to take a little bit of time to show you just for this quick high level. And so these numbers will change. These are just estimates right now, but the phase 1 is estimated to cost about 46.8, 47 million. And phase 1 will be having chargers will begin with the alternative fuel corridors along our interstates. So we're planning for 56 charging locations, which are represented by the blue dots. And the federal rule requires that the placement of these stations be every 50 miles and no more than 1 mile from the interstate exit. And the idea is that it will correspond to at least the availability of gasoline stations. And this first phase is projected to take between 6 and 18 months to complete. And this map where you see the orange dots, these are existing stations because Texas already has a lot of electric vehicle charging stations. So this plan is to help fill in all those gaps so that if you are an electric vehicle, you can comfortably and safely travel anywhere along the interstates in Texas. Okay, and that's all I have to update. I'm going to stop sharing.
Melissa?
Uh-huh.
Try this.
Okay. All right, I'm finished.
Well, I'm just gonna go real quickly. I'm not gonna share my screen. Okay, can you hear me now? This is Matt Washburn, I'm with TDP. I put a couple of links in the chat. I'm just gonna talk real quick about two of the tools that we have where we talk a lot about our data These are the tools where you can use to go and see our data and download our data. So there's first the statewide planning map, which is our web application that has all of our authoritative data sets on it. You can go and explore the data. There's some tools for interacting with it, printing it out, making maps out of it. So check out that link. And then all that data is hosted on our GIS Online. It's our authoritative data sets. You can then go to that next link, which is our open data portal, and find all that data there for download. Another thing I wanted to just mention real quick is we've been working, since there is so much data, we're working with FME. We have an FME server. It's been great to be able to automate that process of data extraction and then loading it to AGO. So I'm really excited about that. So with that, I'll end it there. Thank you.
All right. Listen, you guys, thank you very much. I kind of wish I would have known it would have been this. I would have absolutely put a whole segment together for you guys. No. It's totally good. But we are a little bit behind schedule. But thank you guys for your updates. So now I am going to turn it over to Keith Owens from Fugro, and I just want to preface before Keith comes on that the stuff I'd mentioned early when we first started this session here, I kind of mentioned the future of things that we are going to be working on, and I think you're about to see a peek into things that we want to do, specifically as it relates to the way we're going to basically consolidate our data, the way we're going to sync it up. I think this is the future. And when we first started doing LiDAR back in 2006, it was kind of a test mode. It was just something we were looking into to see. Never really thought we'd have an entire, statewide coverage. This is where we are with this particular technology. So I'm very, very excited to let Keith talk a little bit about what's going on, and I think you're going to get pretty jazzed about it. So Keith, why don't you come on up and we'll get that thing set up over here.
Create DEMS for orthos, and that was really one of the first purposes of that, right? Because we were manually compiling digital elevation models for creating ortho imagery. And I was here, I think it was 98, 99, I was flying a bunch of IR imagery. I was the photographer, taking all those pictures that now you guys are seeing as considered historical, which makes me feel quite old. But we started to see LiDAR evolve a bit, and I'm going to move through this quickly, where, state of North Carolina took on one of the first statewide initiatives to kind of basically move LiDAR data from just a DEM creation to a tool for flood mapping. I'm going to go quick. And then we started to move into more of an emergency response type of scenario. In this case here, we were tasked to go fly the September 11th attacks just a couple of days afterwards. We originally flew imagery and thermal data to help the crews navigate their way around hotspots in the disaster area, but then deployed the LiDAR data as well to capture the elevation data. And that helps us start to measure change. So through 2001 to 2010, obviously we're starting to see just an explode in the expanded use case from just the topo, the bathy to the orthos on up to now we're doing stuff with power utility. In 2014, this is kind of where we really started to see it really jump from the use case. Back in the 2010 to 2014, I would always talk to people about the LiDAR data we would collect for them, and a lot of the answers were that not much. It's sitting on the shelf. So we really wanted to start to expand the use of the data, and that required access, it required processing power, it required better point densities, and so on. And once all that started to develop, we're able to do quite a bit more with it. One of those first things is with the power utility companies. The sensors started to advance into something that will allow us to collect more than 1.5 meter point spacing to 30 points per square meter in a fixed wing aircraft. And that allowed us to model the ground a bit more, look at the subtle features of things, and then capture that data, model that data, and provide analytics from that data. So in 2014, that's what we did. We embarked upon the efforts of providing this type of information for the power utility companies. That really pushed us in advancements because we were dealing with not just gigabytes and terabytes of data, but now petabytes of data. data that was delivered on like pallets of hard drives because we were collecting so much. We're talking 30 points per square meter or tens or 20,000 square miles. And then we're capturing the fine details of a low voltage power line along the network. So then we wanted to start to interact with it. So we started working with some software companies to better interact with that 3D data. And you see things here where now we're starting to combine things like the oblique imagery, the nadir imagery, the LiDAR data, and we're starting to create things like 3D models from that oblique imagery. And now we're building basically these 3D platforms that make that data accessible to the non-technical user. So now you're putting the data in the hands of people outside of maybe just a GIS manager, but folks that might be able to help make decisions from it. One of the neat things was just a couple of weeks ago, we had just created this 3D model for a client of ours at Pepperdine University in Malibu, California. And the neat thing about it was a high detail. We actually collected it with a fixed wing aircraft at 200 points per square meter. And we had imagery at about 2 inches. So we were able to create a full area 3D model for them. And then he called me about a week ago and he says, Keith, I want you to talk to our team about the ability to maybe sometime in the future be able to simulate a tsunami. And what's the impact of our facilities if that tsunami happened? What roads would be closed, what have you. So I contacted my colleague, Mike Renau, who's excellent at this stuff. Mike, we got to put together a presentation to showcase that water level rise event in some point in time, to showcase to Pepperdine University what we're able to do with 3D data as a result of that. This is basically like a bathtub water rise type of scenario. But in this case here, he called me back in like, let's say maybe 10 minutes. He says, hey, so I created you a YouTube video. I just did it. These roads are going to be shut down and this is happening. So now, we're making tools that are making this highly technical data way more accessible, and decisions that would normally take maybe a day or a couple of years or a couple of days in minutes or so, if not seconds. So as we continue to expand, we're starting to look into managing this data better, interacting with petabytes of information in a way in which we start to make it more accurate, make it better quality, however you can, but you're managing this data in a way in which we can expand the use case of it. So in 2021, we worked with our teams that were working in the power utility sector for dealing with 30 points per square meter or greater. They were dealing with using machine learning and AI technologies to basically classify that cluster of points to pull out these features. Well, what we wanted to do now is use that same technique on data that's a bit more widely available to us. So working with TNRIS, and they came and they said, we want to reclassify this federal data to a state specifications where we're going to be adding in these different classifications, and we'll put that out to bid. So we basically combined all of our resources to come up with a technique that would allow us to use machine learning and artificial intelligence to classify 2 points per square meter. And that's quite subjective because when you're looking at 30 points per square meter, a cluster of points is a bit more identifiable of what that cluster is. It's a car, it's a house, it's a tree, or so on. But at 2 points per square meter, it's quite a bit more difficult. So we had to find a way to utilize that machine learning techniques to create this product. And our first project really doing this was over 89,000 square miles. So we had to get it right. So I'll move quickly through this because most of you probably understand LiDAR classifications, but this is ultimately the results of that. It was to classify USGS data to the state specifications, which was transferring or actually adding in classifications like low, medium, and high veg buildings and culverts. Now this is really neat because now we're starting to expand just the use case of that USGS data to the state itself, what they typically do with their state standards. Adding in things like hydro features, culverts, buildings, and vegetation, like you see here. But what that does for the LiDAR data is it expands the use case of it. So when you start thinking about a digital elevation model, you're not just talking about hydro flattening or hydro enforced dam, but maybe a building flattening dam, meaning that buildings actually divert water, but they're always kind of flattened. So in this case here, because we're able to better classify the buildings at a higher degree of accuracy, we can use that information to flatten the dam surface to create that building flattening. We're able to expand a bit into LiDAR-derived building models, which TNRIS works on quite often. improved asset identification, better connection with the vegetation features, so we can do vegetation height and density rasters. But most importantly, because you have good historical, now classified data, and then the next data sets that are captured are held to that same level of quality, classified to the same level, then you can do really accurate change analysis. So you can start to look and measure the world in a way in which we can see the subtle differences changing, like a tree growing or declining, or a house was destroyed, or a fence was put up, or a waterway was redirected because of a major storm like you see here. So because you have better classified data now, you're better able to analyze the earth. Some of those analytics, like we see here in vegetation, culvert identifications, flood analysis. Now, flood in a dam is one thing, but flood within an accurate classified point cloud is another. So you do that water level rise, you can see if you're impacting trees, buildings, utility features, and so on. Site characterization is important too. A lot of our clients use this for doing asset inspection, asset kind of management, like our folks at Pepperdine just did a couple of weeks ago. But the thing that's neat is when we look at the building classifications, is that once we're able to now classify those buildings, sure, you can go and create a good building footprint, you can create a good building model. And that's great because you could use that data to do analytics of the amount of buildings, the volume of buildings, and so on. But normally when we would do that in the past, you would look at a classified data set, you would remove the vegetation, and you'll see some buildings are classified as veg and veg buildings and so on. But because we're now using AI and machine learning, we can actually pull better details of that building surrounding. So we're able to better identify a building footprint and a building model itself. And we can create 3D building models. If points exist and you can model the slope of the roof, you can create a slope roof building model. If they don't, do a flat roof. It's pretty simple. But now what we're really jumping into is combining that technique with nadir imagery. Nadir imagery only. We used to create 3D models from obliques only, and that's kind of like photogrammetry in a way, in which you get a lot of morphy and melty kind of features, and it lowers the, I would say, the confidence in the user when they deal with 3D models that have all that meltiness to it. So we wanted to try to find a way to get good, crisp, clean edges, get good, accurate 3D models at scale in ways which it could be used. So we combined nadir imagery only and LiDAR data, better classified. Now you're combining the positional accuracy of imagery, horizontal, and the vertical accuracy of LiDAR data to create a 3D building scenario, or a digital twin, for lack of a better term, at an accuracy in which it gives confidence to the user. And then once that exists, now you can start to expand the use case of it. So here's a showcase of what ortho imagery would typically look like. The 3D or the LiDAR data better present veg and buildings and other types of utility features. And then the 3D model itself, once it's combined with that nadir imagery. I also say, how do you texturize the sides of those buildings with just nadir imagery? When our business, for creating orthos like we did back in the late 90s, we would always use the sweet spot of that image to create that ortho. And what we wanted to do was get what we would normally throw away and make it usable again. So everything outside of that sweet spot, that nadir view, where you have building lean and all kinds of things, we use that now to texturize the imagery. But combining it with LiDAR data, we're able to now get into maybe like the urban canyons of like a small little area between two buildings, where in photogrammetry, that would normally be melted together and unusable. So now you have access points to buildings, you have routing to buildings that would normally be obscured automatically because of photogrammetry techniques for creating 3D models. So then we wanted to connect that to something that was really meaningful. So we worked with some software vendors. We've been working with building 3D models and interacting with it for many years now. But where we found the most need for it was in the emergency services group. Because we were talking with them, they used very antiquated techniques at the 911 centers to kind of interact with a cell phone caller or a landline caller and their location services. It was a 2D map mostly. And then the FTC put out an initiative to basically say that, these cell providers are going to have Z value associated with the cell phone call. So now we knew that they have an antiquated technique of dealing with the GIS data and a cell phone or emergency services call. And we have a solution that will allow them to take this new requirement for the Z value and build them a 3D GIS that will allow them to interact with it better. So we partnered with a company called Rapid SOS. Rapid SOS is installed in about almost every ECC in the country. And they use this. They have a landline part of their desktop. And then they have I guess the online version, which is the Rapid SOS. And the Rapid SOS was their way of fixing the problem of that cell phone caller and the geolocation information that's associated with that. So we wanted to build in an application that would give these emergency services callers the ability to interact with that 3D world in a way in which they can make better decisions quicker, and then interact with the folks on the ground to get to the emergency itself. This is a picture of Houston, where we created a 3D model and we interacted with the Rapid SOS solution itself, and then we started to really test out the functionality of it. So this is what it looks like when a 911 caller would typically receive a call. They would say, okay, that call is located on this map at this location, and they would do their best to interact with the folks on the ground. But now you have a view in 3D map, which is new to that type of a service. So they click on that 3D map, and then up comes the 3D model that we create for them. In this case here, this is Cambria County, Pennsylvania, where we had to create a county-wide 3D model for them to be within their 911 center itself. So when the caller calls, we're not just seeing on a 2D map. We can actually see them in 3D where they are and what level they are within the building itself. But we needed to make it a bit smarter too, and a bit more interactive. We had tools that had a massive amount of capability. We had all kinds of really great volume calculations and view shed analysis, all that stuff. But the 911 caller needed to make 1 or 2 click button choices. We needed to make something easy to use that wasn't locked down, something that wouldn't require a lot of training to kind of interact with this highly technical data. So we added tools like this one here. We wanted to interact with maybe other features, other GIS layers, but we wanted to burn that into the 3D model itself. So all the operator has to do is actually click on the building to get that detail. The attribute information is available, the road center lines, parcel information, all of that is accessible into this and interacts and overlays right with that 3D model. You can search addresses, and if you don't know the address, you just click on it and get that yourself. They can do quick measuring. You know, we want to know how tall is the building? What is the size of that opening along the facade? Or what is the size of the top of that building itself? Again, a really quick interaction with the 3D model with real quick tools to make those fast decisions. This collapse zone one is pretty interesting. I was listening to the news one morning in Washington, D.C., and there's a building on fire, and then they were interviewing the person. He says, well, we need to create a collapse zone to shut down the streets. And a collapse zone is most commonly 1.5 times the height of the building. So we went back to our developers and said, can we do a collapse zone tool? And I'm like, oh, yeah, we can do a collapse zone tool. I don't know how many people are going to use it, but we're going to do it anyways. So we did that. And our guys are just brilliant folks as far as development was concerned. And they made a 5-click, 4-corner of the building or multi-corner of the building with the height of the building. That was 1.5 times the height. And now you have a collapse zone. I was speaking with folks in New Orleans because I'm thinking, well, we'll see how far this really goes. And they're like, man, we could have used that, 6 months ago when Hard Rock Cafe kind of collapsed in this, and they needed to shut streets down. And a crane punctured the floor, the road there, and they needed to know, where to shut streets down. What was the impact of that puncture of the road? Is there a gas line underneath there? Is there a sewer line? What is it? And it took them a real long time to kind of figure that out, or too long. I wouldn't say real long, but too long in their eyes. So we wanted to make functionality within this quick and easy and fast so they could do it within seconds. And it can be done not in a textured, but even in an untextured environment. So what we wanted to do is be able to create fully textured 3D worlds where maybe it was most important in urban areas, but in rural sections, we wanted to be able to give them a 3D environment as well. So folks like USGS doing that big 3D program, collecting LiDAR data throughout the entire country, we could take that data, we could better classify it, better identify buildings, and create accurate 3D building models, vertically accurate and horizontally accurate. So now that when they interact with that 3D model in this space, it's not exacerbated with inaccurate base data, it's accurate. And then the accuracy of the caller is as well as it can be, right? The breadcrumbs of information that are passed around as that caller is interacting with the user itself. So this is just a showcase of what that would look like in an untextured 3D model world. And then last is the safety zones. So kind of tacking on to the collapse zone itself, we're able to actually create a user interface here where the user can actually look, create the building outline at the top, the height of it as well, and then these safety zones. Where do I want to park? Where do I want to park a police car versus an ambulance? So where do I need to shut a street down? So you can set safety zones along the perimeter. That can even exist not just on a building, but maybe along a parade route. So these are real quick, easy, but intuitive tools that allow folks to make quick decisions that matter to them. But the coolest thing, for lack of a better term, I suppose, is our building explorers. So now we want to get inside the building. So we have a one button up at the top where it allows the person to put that building into X-ray view. And if floor plans exist, they can exist in there. So you see here a red dot of where the caller is located. And we have a floor plan of that building. So the 911 dispatch is now seeing where that caller is located, based off the signal that is being received from the cell phone and the 3D GIS data we have here. But not only that, we can start putting in things like where a fire hydrant is located, or a fire extinguisher, or a defibrillator. So that the person on the phone can say, just walk down the hall, there's a defibrillator on the right, grab that, and you can help this person out. It's starting to increase the response times of the users because they have better functionality at the desktop. They're better aware, they're more informed, and they have better situational awareness to help guide folks, on the ground from their phone. What's neat about this is if the building floor doesn't exist, this system is so intuitive that it'll get the Z value of the caller and say, we think they're on floor 16. So if a floor plan doesn't exist, like in non-government buildings where you might not do floor scans or anything like that, we'll say, we think they're 4th floor. And then as those breadcrumbs kind of work their way around, it might change a bit, of course, but the system knows and it'll look for that. So I think I went really fast. Like there's a lot to talk about at the front end of this and why we got to where we're at here, of course. And I know you guys, I'm in the way of your beer and I apologize for that. But it's really neat to see our industry kind of morph its way into something that's even more meaningful than it was just 10 years ago. Like the fact that, I'm blessed with my career at this company and all the really neat projects I've been involved in for 27 years. I'm really blessed with that, blessed with the ability to see that kind of growth. But what's really interesting is what's happening right now. So at the first slide, I think I had the history of it. There's the paper era, and then there's the digital era starting in the 70s and 80s, and now we're in the big data and analytics era. And really, this is where we're going to see, the expansion hit. And this is where we really need to test ourselves to build more, do better, be more accurate, be more better quality, and so on. And as we continue to build better geodata, we can make better decisions, that'll help us kind of build that safe and livable world. So very fast, I do apologize. I hope that was within your time frame that you wanted there, but thank you guys for listening.
Surely you guys must have some questions for Keith.
Floor plans. So you mentioned government buildings and floor scans. Are there a large number of buildings that have floor plans that you can adjust, or does it have to be a particular 3D thing, or can you guys just get?
Yeah, PDF of a floor plan works. A JPEG of the floor plan works. An interior scan of it as well. Our clients, one of our clients is actually going in with those white backpack scanners. Apologize for that, but it's a white backpack laser scanner, and they're going through and scanning the interior of the building, and they're putting it into 3D. So then now, instead of having a floor plan, they actually do kind of like a cross section, and it goes down and it creates, and you can actually look into the top of the building and see all the details of it within that. Or you can even, go into a walk mode and actually walk in the front door and see all the point cloud data as well. And so they're going around and scanning their emergency services like the fire stations, hospitals, and schools, and they're actually putting that into this 3D so that you have all that interior information Where it doesn't exist, PDF is fine. Same with the JPEG, and that's what's it has to be. You have to be able to use. It can't be that perfect scenario in order to use this data. We wanted something where we can use USGS data at low point density out in the rural sections in a PDF, or where we fly 200 points per square meter and create this awesome digital twin of an area and use that. It really has to be functional across all available data. That's what we're doing.
That's a great presentation. When I was watching it, you showed this tsunami. And I was wondering if your company or the water board or GLO is doing anything like that for hurricane surge.
Yeah, so I can pick it up there, and this is kind of where Keith's technology is coming in. The whole reason we're having this conversation is because that's the idea. So we talked about bathymetry data early on. It's so we can start to model, storm surge, tsunamis if they should happen to hit here. So bottom line is that's the direction we're headed with this.
More mundane use of that data is regular climate change and sea level rise. Damage to the roads down in South Texas is horrendous.
I did a climate talk in Caribbean climate resilient talk, and for that I used the data of Jamaica, and I was able to we had bathy and topo, so I was able to remove that water surface and then just use the bathy data and then simulate water level rise and the impact of over the next 100 years, and then what the impact has on the assets and the trees and the transportation features and so on as that standing water just kind of, that's probably one of the more simpler, capabilities of a 3D GIS.
Pretty mundane, but it's every day.
Any more questions here? And not, we'll go to the.
There aren't any online.
Are any emergency services using your software right now?
Yeah. So the Rapid SOS portal exists in every emergency service. The button exists. Now it's about getting the data behind it and then figuring out, the usability of it there as well. But up in Pennsylvania, they use it. They say about 8 calls a day in a rural town. They have to use the 3D to do their services.
And when you were developing software, did you go and talk to actually the operators and the firefighters and the police? Did you?
Yeah, I sat down right there in each caller location. I watched how they work.
Wow.
I sat there and watched calls come in and the challenges they had across different parts of the country. So in order for us to build this, there's one thing to have a great idea internally because we deal with cool data and we want to make something really neat. But that can fall flat if it's not the voice of the user itself. And so it required us to go and sit and listen and say, okay, these are the things important. That's why we started out with a desktop tool that had massive amounts of functionality. And then once we got and sat at all the ECCs and listened to the calls come in and then figure, okay, this is how we can connect it. And it whittled it down to like, they need 5 things or 6 things, versus 100, buttons to push.
And E911 started you guys off.
I'm saying that again.
The E911 helped start you guys off.
It did, and it's funny. I was at a MENA conference not too long ago, and they got up and they're presenting and like, this is the future. In years to come, this is what it's going to be like. And me and my client kind of looked at it. We've been doing this since 2017. Like, what are you talking about the future? We've been doing this for quite some time now. But it would be nice, if people start to really understand the value of the GIS data, the 3D data, and start to adopt it, because it does have impact.
Thank you very much. So one thing just to kind of close out here, one thing to notice is that it's one data set that had everything in it. Imagine, I guess, the state of Texas just grabbed one thing and all of it exists within that element. Instead of having to try to get, oblique data, nadir data, LiDAR data, and then try to find the parcels and doing all of that, you could literally just access this and pull out the information that you need. And I think that's where we're going with this, and we're going to get more engaged in next gen 911, which is the floor plan stuff. We already know there's stuff in legislation to talk about requiring federal buildings to have floor plans. The next thing you know, they're going to be requiring it to be mapped in some sort of an infrastructure or some sort of way. We want to get in front of that so we can direct them the right way to do it versus having them tell us do things that are maybe not necessarily the right way to go, because we all know that, sometimes people bend their ear and it's not necessarily the right way to go. So we're trying to be proactive on this. So Keith has the perfect scenario that pulled it all together, and that's exactly why we need him to kind of show you what this thing looks like. So thank you, Keith. No questions online? I think we're still okay.
Yeah, I can't really see the controls because they're over there now.
Oh, here we can swap out. Yeah, so they're looking over there.
I don't see any.
Up on the left. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Do you think Fugro symmetry name draw any inspiration to SimCity?
Yeah. If you can hear me, yeah, symmetry was actually something we started working on a very long time ago. The concept of 3D modeling really started, I think, I'm gonna say in the early 2000s when we were doing a lot of stuff for ports and harbors. So the actual original concept of symmetry was quite a long time ago, actually. So we just picked back up on that effort from the early 2000s, but the early 2000s wasn't really ready to adopt 3D worlds yet. Didn't have the, the capability, the functionality of computers, processing power, and so on to really interact with that data. So, or perhaps maybe it's because we had a trademark back then. We just didn't want to do that all over again, so we picked it up.
There you go. And another one is, would QL1 LiDAR be high enough density to make those detailed 3D building models?
Yeah, so we do building models with 2 points per square meter, 8 points, 30, 200. The higher the density, the better the capability of modeling the features that you're trying to model. So for instance, like we'll use the high density stuff, the 30 points or greater, to model the very specifics of a tree shape, power pole, power line. 8 points per square meter does a fine job of getting roof detail. Might still miss some fine details like an air conditioning unit on the top of the roof. It'll get there. You can get some, some larger ones if you think about the cluster of points and what they're able to pick up. The higher the point density, the better. However, one of the things I failed to mention was that higher density, more images and all of that it's great because you can model better, but there is a balance between so much data where it's hard to manage, it's expensive to put on the cloud, it's expensive to interact with because there's just a massive amount of data. So there's a nice sweet spot of good modeling functionality and data size. Because ultimately, yeah, I'd love to create something with obliques and nadir and LiDAR, but now your costs start to go through the roof because of just dealing with all those gigapixels and then the processing power required to do that. So we really wanted to look for that sweet spot to make it affordable and functional.
Those are the only ones online.
Okay, I think that computer's still doing the driving, so you just want to advance to. Let's see if I can. And show. Go to Google Chrome. Here, now we can fast forward.
There you go. It's ready.
Okay, so, all right, so that's it. First of all, let me just apologize for the staff and those who are online. Thank you for hanging on. We do apologize for that. But I did, Keith, thank you very much for hanging in there with us. We appreciate it. So we're going to go to Happy Hour over there at we're at Meanwhile Brewing, which is literally around the corner from here, just to the north, I think. So hopefully we'll see you then. And it's like we're about 6 minutes late from getting there. Please join us for that. Thank you, URISA and SWIGGIS for getting that going for us. We appreciate it.
Courtney has her hand up.
Go ahead, Courtney. Oh, let's see. Do I need to?
I'm doing it. Courtney, you're unmuted.
Hey everyone, it's Courtney Rowe. I just wanted to say what a great meeting today, and I feel so lucky to be able to attend online. I hope everybody takes advantage of going over to the Mappy Hour and continuing to network, because I think that networking opportunity really builds and strengthens our GIS community. And so no matter whether or not you're joining SCOG or URISA Texas or SWIGGIS, we really want y'all to be involved and enjoy the great fun things that we do. We have a lot of professional development coming up. URISA Texas is deeming June our professional development month. So we're going to have headshots and resume reviews. And SWIGGIS is doing some wonderful things in the local Austin area and beyond. So join us for some of our cool events. I know our next one is going to be seeing my little Bonnie and Clyde race at the Buda Wiener Dog races. So join us outdoors for fun. You don't have to be a woman to support women in geography and GIS. And we have lots of professional development as well. So I can't wait to see y'all in the future. Hope y'all have fun tonight.
Thanks, Courtney. Appreciate that. And thanks for everything that you do to support this community meeting. So let's see, next slide, please. Okay, so again, visit us at TxDOT.org when if you want to learn more about the positions that we have. We will be posting those and be tweeting out when those things start to fall, and you'll get some updates also on the website. Also, be checking the website too for data updates as well, because we're doing, really trying hard to keep everybody up to date with our data. Upcoming meeting will be July 19th, 2023, over at the ACC Highland campus. And then, of course, the October 27th is our forum. We do always reserve that very last day to do the state of the state, which is basically this meeting, but kind of expanded. So we hope to see you there. And I believe that's all. Any other comments from you guys? Any other things?
Friday's free.
I'm sorry?
Friday's free. It's free.
Oh, yeah. So the Friday is free on the forum. You don't have to register to go to the forum to make the Friday meeting at the forum. So that's just something to think about. But if you want to pay, we're okay with that too. So, but listen, thanks everybody. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Travis, and thank you, Chris, for letting us have this beautiful